Hi, I'm your host Dave Kemp, and this is Future Ear Radio. Each episode, we're breaking down one new thing, one cool new finding that's happening in the world of hearables, the world of voice technology. How are these worlds starting to intersect? How are these worlds starting to collide? What cool things are going to come from this intersection of technology? Without further ado, let's get on with the show. All right, so we're joined here today by the one and only Mr. Mark Tucker. Mark, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so Mark Tucker, I'm Lexa Champion, Bixby Premier Developer. I've been doing voice development for the last 4 years, just been involved a lot of cross-platform stuff, a lot of things in open source, but currently I work for a company called Soar.com, and at Soar, we are trying to uplift humanity by helping people understand their strengths and by providing uplifting content. And one of the platforms that we do that on is voice assistance. So we have an Alexa skill that allows us to share that content through our smart speakers and also via a mobile app.
Awesome. So with Soar, is this the type of thing? Can you give me an example of what that content would look like? And I'm just curious about this platform. Can you share a little bit about what the content looks like that you guys are building and how it's
Sure.
accessed and all that?
Yeah, so we, in one case, we've partnered with Sandler, which is a top sales training company, and they have hours and hours of content for people that are learning how to be better sales leaders and salespeople. And we are able to, on their voice platform, take their content, run it through a content pipeline, change that into a format that Alexa can handle, do transcriptions on it, allow you to do searches, and play that content, whether it's on your phone, on the go with your Echo Buds, or in your car with Echo Auto, or in the office, or wherever you've got that content. Similarly, we have a product for Soar Uplift, which is more general, which is uplifting content, where we're working with content providers to provide uplifting content, and you can set up playlists and do other things, but it's you can search by keyword, title, full transcription, whatever, to get to the content that's important to you.
That's really cool. I love it. And, so I wanted to bring Mark on for this conversation today, because the purpose of this conversation is going to be to really break down some of the most, I think, key findings, I guess, or most exciting, announcements that came from Alexa Live, which transpired on Wednesday. I was pretty busy that day, and every time I would hop on Twitter, I would see Mark live tweeting it, and he was doing a phenomenal job. And, so Amazon released 31 Alexa related announcements during this presentation. Mark covered all of it. And so I thought, who better to bring on to help us to understand what are the most important things that we need to think about. So I reached out to Mark and I said, Mark, why don't we go through the top 5 of your, the things that were announced that you're most excited about. So that's what today's going to be all about. So we'll just get started right off the top. Mark, we'll go reverse order. Hit me with number 5, most exciting thing from Alexa Live 2020.
All right, so great conference, lots of things to go over. It was half of a day, but it was fast and furious on the tweeting, and but just trying to get your head around things as quickly as possible. So just so much out there that's going to help the voice assistant be better, to help developers make better voice experiences. And in the end, that's going to help customers who are using Alexa devices and using voice apps and skills that are on this platform. So one of the things that we've talked about, as a developer a lot, is the quality of audio. So the better the audio content that you have, then the better experience it is for the users. So I am choosing as number 5, something which is Alexa Presentation Language, or APL for audio. It's some enhancements that allow you to take audio content and have CD quality audio, plus support additional formats for that audio. Before, short form audio would be done with something called SSML, which is Speech Synthesis Markup Language. So this is a newer way of doing it, but allows you to take audio and bring it down to the device where there on the device you could play this high quality audio, mix it with other audio or text to speech content.
Yeah, that's actually, I think, a really good starting point, which is, okay, so APL, like you said, Alexa Presentation Language has been around for a while. And so I think this is kind of an interesting new update to it where you're going to have enhanced audio, right? You're going to have like this, higher quality audio. And prior to recording, I actually saw a really interesting tweet from my buddy, Andy Bellavia, of Knowles Corp. So he's real involved with the hardware side of, in the ear devices. He's very tuned into high quality audio, and he made a really good point that, as we see Alexa moving into different form factors such as Echo Buds, I think it's interesting that now you have APL that's more optimized for higher quality audio. You're just going to probably expect some pretty cool type of experiences that have that premium audio level that's delivered to you, through that Alexa Presentation Language in these different Alexa skills.
Yeah, no, exactly. So great win for the end customer, but also great win for the developer, because the way that you would have to do this before is if you wanted background audio track with some sound effects and some text to speech, you would need to mix that together, like some pre-recorded pre-mixing of the audio content. And then if you had various permutations of that, then you would just have this explosion of audio files that you would have to pre-mix. Whereas now you can do those separately and overlay them and have that mixing happen on the client without having to do all that pre-work.
Yeah, no, I love it. Great start. All right, so into number 4. Hit me.
All right, so number 4 is interesting. There's a number of situations where you're using Alexa in what I would say on again, off again, or asynchronous manner, where you're starting some task and then you need to continue the task a little bit later. And the way that happens today is that you would start the app and you'd say, Alexa, open whatever the name of your skill is, and then you do your thing, and then the session would end, and then you would come back a little bit later and you say, Alexa, open, the skill again to get to the next step. And it's always, one, it's always user initiated, and two, it's always like I start from the very beginning to get back to the point where it was. So the next feature I want to talk a little bit about is foregrounding and backgrounding.
Okay.
So what's really exciting about that is that you can start your Alexa experience. Think of you have an app that's going to record your jog. And so you go ahead and start your app, but you're not quite ready to leave yet. You still have to, lace up your shoes or whatnot. And now you're ready to go. You can just say, Alexa, ready to go. And if that's an intent that your skill listens for, then your skill is still in the background because you told it to wait in the background and for more user input. So then your experience starts as like, cool, ready to go. And then you go to Spotify or Amazon Music and you start listening to your playlist that you want to play while you're out on your run. But there's different progress points, and you want different things to happen during that. So your voice app can wake up and give you some feedback, and then go back in the background. So you can have this flipping back and forth. We're used to that when on our mobile phone already. When we're listening to music and a call comes in, and the audio pauses, and you do your call, and then when you're done with the call, then the music comes back on. You couldn't do that before with Alexa, and now you can.
That's another really good one, because I love this idea where you have, I'm glad you mentioned that piece about the smartphone, where you're seeing a lot of these, like the plumbing, like it's a lot of the small little minor things that they're annoying in aggregate. Like they add up in a way to where it becomes a frustrating experience. And so I feel like what we're kind of going through right now, this phase, is it's sort of like this piecemeal effort where it's like, okay, we'll patch this up and we'll sort of standardize this and make this a little bit more similar to the experiences that we're used to. Like you said, with the backgrounding and the foregrounding, I just think that's a really good way to think about it, is in the same way that we have all this functionality that's just so seamless with our phones, where the audio picks up for your phone, you have that call, and then immediately when that call ends, wait a second, and then like the podcast that you're listening to or the music that you're listening to resumes. So that's, I think, a really good way to juxtapose this and a good way to think about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of these things would be in a category where I would say where it's kind of smoothing off the rough edges,
Mm-hmm.
or polishing the silver, so to speak,
Yeah.
where you can start getting some additional varied, more natural interaction. Because if I'm talking to you, I'm like, oh, hi Dave, how are you doing? We start something, and then later on, I don't say Dave. I don't have to say Dave
Right.
every time I talk to you.
Right.
Right.
It's
so
the naturalness of it.
Yeah, it is. It's getting towards that a little bit more.
Inch by inch. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Number 3.
All right. Number 3. This is interesting. So we're talked a little bit about mobile. This is Alexa for apps. And the big example that they gave, which was interesting, was TikTok. Now, let's say that you're on your phone and you already have a mobile app, but you want to voice enable that app.
Mm-hmm.
So what they're allowing you to do is create what's called a companion skill. And the whole reason of existence of this companion skill is to take voice utterances, or what developers would call intents, or what you say, and translate that into deep links into an existing mobile app. So what that means is that you can say, Alexa, open TikTok, or Alexa, search TikTok for some content, or replace TikTok with whatever your app is, right? Or and also, Alexa, ask TikTok to start recording. So for those phones that have Alexa built in, or for those devices that are able to connect to your phone, I think the main example they gave were like the Echo Buds, that you're able to then control mobile apps via voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess an interesting point on this is that if the deep links already exist to your mobile app, there's no additional work you have to do on the app side. It's all on the Alexa side. And then there's also, I guess, in that same group is adding the screen on your mobile phone as an additional modality. This could be a situation where you're using the Uber app or something with navigation. You can ask for information about a location or where your driver is, or whatever, and your phone could then deep link and open up the app or maps that show where things are. So it's allowing inside of the voice experience to control mobile apps, or to provide additional context or information on your mobile phone.
Yeah, this was an interesting one to me. And I think it might be a precursor of something much bigger to come.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the use cases are, I think it's really interesting that now it is able to sort of navigate into the app economy, but I found it to be a little bit too abstract, which to me kind of leads me to think that this is probably part of something much bigger. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I suspect that as well. When you're looking at the companion app, which is just this simple, I want to voice enable this mobile app.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that makes sense. Where it gets a little bit more complicated is when you have a more standalone skill that does things on its own already. So then, does the voice app compete with the mobile app? When you're using the voice experience, then and you say play this playlist, if Alexa already knows how to play a playlist, then does it do that? And then where is that handoff? So for example, maybe on my smart speaker, I am listening to a playlist, and I've decided to open up that same mobile app on my mobile phone and list all the items in my playlist. And so then if I tap something on my playlist, does it play the playlist from my mobile app, or does it send information to the Alexa skill to play the next item in the playlist based on, using the phone more as like a remote control? Yeah. So I think there is some, details that would need to have a little bit more information on in order to figure out. But I like the idea of having that other modality of your mobile phone and a deep link into a mobile app.
Yeah.
Lots of possibilities. Not exactly sure. All the details on that are, and like I think you said before, it seems like there's more to come in this area.
Yeah, I thought that it was like, obviously this could become a really big deal. My skepticism is partly around the fact that we're talking about iOS and Android. So this has always been the sort of like the linchpin, or I guess like the Achilles heel for Alexa in general, is what does it do with the fact that there is no native smartphone to tether it to? Like if there was the Fire Phone, then this all would maybe be a totally different conversation. But given the fact that, what my mind goes to when I think about this idea of apps and voice assistants is like, I think about Android and Google Assistant, and I think about, and even Samsung and Bixby too.
Mm-hmm.
And Apple and Siri. It's just it would seem that for them they could natively sort of bake the assistant in so that you could have the assistant acting as a mesh into any of the different apps and retrieving bits and pieces from any one given app. So to see that Amazon is trying to attempt to do this, it would appear, and it's interesting because it's, if there is a way that they can circumvent, like the gatekeepers, if you will, the OS providers, because I think there's a lot of interest for a company, and I think it's no mistake that they chose TikTok, because I think there would be a lot of incentive on TikTok's, standpoint to make their, I think of it as like, what if you could broadcast TikTok from your phone onto, a smart speaker or a smart display, or onto your smart TV, whatever that might be, and it becomes like a beaming device. That's kind of interesting to me too. So I'm not totally sure what they're going to do with this, but everything about that to me seemed sort of like not fully baked. But I think that's because I think there's a whole lot more to come there.
Yeah, what's interesting is the fact that the limitations, the interaction has to begin on the phone in order for you to take advantage of the deep links. I understand that, but it's also interesting that there are limitations. You'd need to have some Alexa enabled accessory that uses the Alexa mobile accessories kit.
Mm-hmm.
And so that seems to be a number of limitations. Just recently, Amazon had announced that if you have your Alexa app open on iOS and Android, then you can do tap-free invocation, to start Alexa and use that, I guess overriding your default Siri and Google Assistant functionality if the app is open. But I'm wondering if this currently works in that situation, or if that's not there yet either. So we're in this world where I definitely see that using your phone and voice controlling things on your phone, or from your experience from your phone, is an important. And I think this is Amazon trying to figure out how to make that happen, and in what steps they can take to get that use case buttoned up a little bit better.
Well said. Okay. All right. So number 2.
All right. So number 2, this is the situation where you launch a voice app and your skill, and you don't remember exactly what it's called. So this is name-free interaction. And the idea is that with your voice, you can start an Alexa skill by specifically saying launch, Soar Uplift, for example. Or you can say, Alexa, start Soar Uplift and play, and then give a list of a playlist. So you can either launch the app or go right into an intent. So what name-free interaction does is allows you to find up to 5 phrases that isn't your invocation name. So in this case, Soar Uplift, right? It's something else like play uplifting music, or I want sales content, or whatever it is. Then those things go into the mix for Amazon to help, I guess, determine which skill gets launched. So I guess it's the closest thing that we have to SEO right now.
I was just thinking that.
Would be starting these phrases of what can I say that would get me to that experience. Now, it's not exactly clear from the documentation if this is in the case where I don't know anything about the skill at all. Like it's the Alexa, how do I order a pizza scenario? And then it suggests, do you want to order Pizza Hut? Do you want to try Domino's? I'm not sure if it's that situation or if it's the situation where you already have it enabled and you just want to get back to it again and you can't remember exactly what to say. So you say something close, or you say the thing that comes to your mind, and hopefully it's one of those things that you've specified as the NFI invocation, and then you get to start it up anyway, even though you didn't remember the exact name. So I don't know if it's either or both, and the documentation is not exactly clear on that or where the edge cases are.
Yeah, like this one.
Yeah.
This one caught my attention too. And the first thing that went to my head was just like what you said, was SEO, because I was thinking to myself, okay, so if it's a related search, if you will, that is rather generic, if it's a movie, let's say it's a movie review type skill, and there's a number of different movie reviews, and I say the generic, phrase would be launch me a movie review skill or something like that. So you'd have maybe 20 different skill creators fighting over that referral code or that, related search. So I was curious, like, how does it determine, is it based on the enabled apps that you already have? So that would be the determining factor, would be, okay, you want to launch a skill that's in this category and you've already enabled this one, so we'll launch this skill. Those were the questions I had, was like, how does this work from, like the delivery standpoint of determining which skill? Is it a carousel? How does it work?
Yeah, and that is it's kind of like asking Google how they do their
right.
How do I get number one on my Google rank?
Right.
So yeah, not a lot of information on that. So is it your ranking, or like your rating, your 5-star rating in the skill store? Is it the number of reviews that you have? Is it the number of invocations? Do they, does Amazon keep track of how many times people have invoked your skill? So that's a higher candidate.
If you reach a 5-star rating across X amount of reviews or something like that, you could fall into another premium. Yeah, it could be. And that goes to the idea of best practices kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely important to deliver a quality voice experience, because and live up to, if you're saying that you can handle this specific type, like in the case of, you can specify a name-free interaction that's an intent. So you say, I can say, play me uplifting content. So uplifting audio or music, something like that. So uplifting would be the type of thing that you're searching for. But it could also be sales content or entrepreneurship, or whatever the category is. So it needs to be something that you support. So it's interesting because name-free invocation interaction is something that you do at build time. It's something you define and you say, these are the things that I want to support. That pairs with something that's been out for years, which is the can fulfill intent request.
Right.
Which is at the time that Alexa is trying to figure out which skill to choose from, it's going to send out some stuff to some potential candidates, and depending on how you answer, it could pick you. So like if I get something that's saying that the person's wanting sports content, then I can say, no, that's not something we do. So I can say, no, we don't do sports, and so then we're not included. But there's also indications that if the user gets pointed towards your skill with a name-free invocation, and the user then turns around and say, Alexa, stop, and ends the skill, then that's going to put you down. They're going to say, oh, this, in the end, this didn't really,
Yes.
wasn't the voice experience the user was looking for. And so you need to be very careful in providing, I guess, what you advertise, you need to deliver on, right? If you say, I can fulfill this type of content, then you need to be able to fulfill that.
Well, that's actually a really interesting point, because really the big byproduct of that could be that this is a mechanism to weed out, or I guess that's a negative way to position it, but it's a good way to surface the best content.
Yeah.
Because those that, like you said, if it's derived from metrics like time elapsed, the percentage of time of the total skill, 95% of people reached the end of the skill or whatever. And therefore we're going to determine that that's a good positive metric that will add a little bit more weight to this. And again, it goes back to kind of like the SEO thing, where it's in some way, I think they have to feed the algorithm inputs into determining what gets selected. And so that's going to be a very interesting one to watch. I do agree with you there.
Yeah, I definitely think that they're monitoring a number of different stats. It could be session length. It could be, early termination. There's just a number of different things that they could monitor that would then indicate, that this is a better skill based on that invocation name or phrase. So yeah, that's a lot to go there. There's also a few hints in the frequently asked questions that if you have things like permissions or other things, then they might steer you away, or you might have to have that permission enabled in order for that to work. So then that kind of points towards, well, maybe there is a difference. Maybe it does help point you towards new skills, and in another case, point you back to existing skills that you've enabled, which is interesting. If it points you back to existing skills that you've enabled based on the NFI that you select, then that becomes personalization. Now that becomes, when I say this thing, then that's what I mean. Mm-hmm. And you can say something else and pick some other skill that's your thing, which is something that Bixby's big on, right? So they have these natural language categories, which you have to fulfill certain intents or actions based on whether it's weather or horoscope or whatever the different categories are. But then you can say, this is the default for me for this thing. So I'm wondering if this is a slightly different way of doing that without making it so prescribed. I don't know.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. And actually, I think this is going to segue really nicely into number one. Drum roll, please. I think I know what it's going to be, but go ahead.
Alexa Conversations. No, I'm just joking.
I wish.
So
as it's in data.
So Alexa Conversations is a whole other thing.
Yeah, we'll have to have
it was actually like 6th on my list. Sorry. Number one is quick links and custom task links. So like we said before, you can start a skill by just saying the invocation name, or now NFI, and launch it, or you can go right into a specific intent by giving it more detail. That's exactly what quick links are. Quick links launches the app. You can use that today. No additional work needed for anything. You just construct a URL that you include what your skill ID is, and it's got /launch on the end, and you can post that wherever. You can have it in your social media. You can have it in your help documentation on your website, wherever you want somebody to launch your skill from. Then just include that link. And what happens is when you click on the link, then it redirects you to an intermediate page. Now, if you're not logged on to your Amazon account that's associated with Alexa, then you're going to get a log on with Amazon dialog, so you can enter your user ID and password. But then on this page, it gives you a little header at the top that shows you what the name of the skill is, the skill icon, its rating, a little information about it, and then it finds the Alexa devices that are connected that you own associated with that account, and you've got a button for each one of those, or a button to send a notification to all of your Alexa devices. And so you just tap one of those buttons, and Next thing you know, that device is talking to you saying, do you want to start this experience, this specific skill on this device? And it starts to run and you're off, just as if you were to have said, Alexa, open whatever your skill invocation name is.
Yeah, I actually think this is a humongous deal for the whole Alexa ecosystem. This would have been my number one too if I was power ranking them, because I think that we've heard so much discussion around discoverability, and just this dilemma that, how do you ever remember the invocation for 10, 20, 30, this idea where you're going to have this ever increasing amount. You don't have the skeuomorphic interface like you have with, the mobile web, and you have your apps and all that. So you don't have these reminders of what app means what and all this. You got to just remember it. And I think this is massive for two reasons. The first is the ability for marketers to effectively cross-channel market their skill, I think, is just a total game changer from a marketing standpoint, because now you can think of whole campaigns that the whole purpose is to grow the skill user base. And so you have a social media campaign, you have digital marketing, Google ads, banner images on websites. I can just see this becoming something where, this is something where we'll see a lot of, where you get people to enable the skill. I think that's the big thing, because again, it goes back to what you were just saying about number two being, the referrals. If it is something where it is kind of like it's a system that's really largely dependent on what you've already enabled, but you can't necessarily remember it, but you have that movie skill that you enabled through you have the Fandango skill or whatever that might be. But it's slipping your mind of how you invoke that. So then you can use this generic term and say, hey, launch my movie skill. And it's like, okay, I know that that's Fandango. And the reason that you were even enabling that in the first place was because of this really effective marketing campaign. So I think that this is a massive development for the third-party ecosystem, because I think now it solves a major problem where, it's like, how do you get people to get signed up so that you can open the skill without having to enable it? And then B, I think it gives them the opportunity, if this whole referral network kind of becomes something where it's dependent on these, suggested kind of, affiliated searches.
Yeah, no, I think what you say, there's a lot in there that just rings true, because how do you get somebody in the skill for the very first time, right? You might run an ad campaign that's got a great graphic, maybe it's Kung Fu Panda and you've got the new Kung Fu Panda skill and you just say, Alexa, open Kung Fu Panda. That seems simple enough, but sometimes people just want to tap. There's that extra security of, I just tap this thing and I follow through the steps and, oh, now I'm here. There are multiple steps, because you do your one tap in and you might have to then log in, and then you have to tap which device you want to go to, and then you start getting the voice interaction. But for new users that especially that are new to this idea of skills and want to be their handheld a little bit more, it's kind of scary just to say something and to see if it works or not. But to be able to, they're used to tapping. People are used to touching a button. I can even see, this is just something that occurred to me, is, what if I were to take one of the quick links and then save that as an icon on my mobile phone. So I'm already in there and I've got some sort of an app, and I just want to tap that, and then all of a sudden now it's going to allow me to open that up on another device. So it's there's lots of different things that you can do with that. So just love the idea of quick links and lots of different things going on. Now, so we talked about quick links, and I just want to give a little bit more detail on custom task links. So custom task links, that gets you into a specific intent. Now, like I said before, quick links, you don't have to do anything. You just have to create this special web link and pass it around. No new code, no sign up for any preview. You can just do that today. In fact, if you have an existing skill, I encourage you to go out there, create your URL, and start posting it on social media. Include me on it, Mark Tucker, and I'll click on your skill. I'll go try it out.
Cool.
So custom links is going to take a little bit more work. So the idea is that now you can have additional, you can say, I want to do a specific thing when I click that. So that would be like saying a specific intent, like play, a specific playlist maybe. And then you can pass information along with that, like the name of the playlist or something. So that's interesting too. If you've got a website or a mobile app that gives you down into details, then you could provide custom task links at various places all through your mobile app or on your website that you're saying, I'm in this experience, I'm here, I'm doing something, but now I want to go to this exact spot in my voice experience.
Yep.
It's very similar. It's going to open up that intermediate page. You'll actually get to see the list of values that's going to get passed on to your skill, and you can select which device you want it to go to. And what's interesting about that is then you can start it at that exact spot.
Yes.
And you don't have, you don't have to, but so you're not presented with the typical launch welcome. Okay, what do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
It gets you there quicker, and you're immediately doing the thing that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So think about, how that might, if you have a game and you want to get to an exact spot inside of a game, I don't know, maybe you can do something clever with like save points in a game and text that out. And so then you can get right back into that exact spot in the game. When you go back, there's just lots of different things that you can do. Or even like a shared experience, like maybe you're doing something and you want to share that with a friend. So maybe you can get that custom task link and share that with somebody else. And now they can get right to that same spot where you were or something. So lots that can do. And I haven't even unwrapped the last little part. There's a special value that you can pass in that custom task link, which it seems like, from what my understanding is something that Amazon has given meaning. So what happens is it doesn't show to the user, and it can be whatever text that you want, but it goes to that campaign. I'm on campaign 1 and on Twitter, and that could be in that text that you send as part of that value. And so then that's how you're going to do track your marketing campaigns. And it seems like that there's going to be analytics so that you can see that your skill was launched by somebody saying, starting at the normal voice invocation way, or you can then start seeing these strings that you've placed all over different, social media sites or whatever come up. And so then you can start seeing that I have 50 people that got here because of this Facebook, Facebook ad or wherever that you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, my mind is going a million directions right now, because I'm thinking like the really killer thing here could be media. So think about like Food Network Kitchen. Okay, so think about it, if it's, given what you said about the custom skills, right? You can target them to a specific destination, and it asks you, which device do you want to broadcast this to? So think about if you had, say, a Twitter stream that is nothing but different clips. But instead of video clips, what you're trying to do is you're trying to use Twitter as a source to identify the Food Network video that you want to broadcast onto your voice-enabled device. So you then say, okay, so here's a live cooking video that Gianna's hosting right now, or, Bobby Flay is going to show me in 4 minutes how to, do a pot roast. Would you like to watch that? Yeah, I would. And instead of taking me to YouTube, what I actually want is I want it up on my Google Assistant, or I'm sorry, on my Alexa show. And I want to be able to see, with that functionality where I can talk to it. I look at this as like, whoa, this could be a really interesting way that you could start to, particularly for the reason I'm using media as an example is because you think about that as little individual pieces of content in the, the broad suite of whatever, content host that is. So you could think of it with the BBC, could do it with, different news clips. So you could like say, I want to take this from my phone and I want to rebroadcast it out through that Alexa quick link. So I'm just going to tap once on my phone, and instead of clicking like I would to go into YouTube, I'm clicking and I'm saying, play it on my Echo Show. I just think that's like, whoa, now we're talking about getting people in places where there's high attention, like Twitter, like Instagram, like these places where you can now paste that link in there. And if they're nearby, especially these smart displays or smart TVs, it just seems like Bamboo Learning's another good one where, you could quickly just be like, I want to go and I want to find a couple good lessons for my kid for today. Here are going to be the 3 that I do. It's like now you're being able to take a lot of the really great, functionality from the mobile world, but then you're able to, it's sort of, I think the quick link is in a lot of ways, it's almost like a bridge that you can use to span the mobile world into the voice world in a pretty seamless way. And it allows you to designate, like, I want it onto this device or I want it on this device. And I love this whole custom piece where you don't necessarily have to go in the front door of the skill. You can go in the side door so that you're just accessing this 1 5-minute video. I don't have to navigate or anything. And then now it's suddenly like, now you're getting people comfortable with this idea of, that's why I should have, this Alexa Show in my kitchen. Is this thing's a really powerful device that I can quickly throw things from my phone through these Alexa links onto my device without having to necessarily invoke it and search it in that way. I just think it opens the door to a whole lot broader type of usage.
Yeah, no, exactly. And imagine you're watching something on some video player, and I don't know that would be YouTube, but let's say that some future video player allows you to say, at this point in time, you're like, I really like the content from this part to this part, and so tap, and then when it gets to the end, tap, and then all of a sudden that becomes a quick link, that start and stop timestamp, and then that gets uploaded to content. So then now
totally,
I'm in my car,
I totally get what you're saying. That's
right, and I can
exactly
say
where this could go.
Listen to my favorite, or the things that I've saved, right? And then now it just is grabbing that clip, or you can share that with somebody else, right? And so now they're listening to their device, and they can listen to just that clip, or with their screen device, watch that video from that section to that other section.
If this evolves into user-generated clips, holy cow, then this is a whole different story. I mean, then we're talking about, like you said, where you're having people share out on their own specific aspects within these, and that's part of I think the broader story too, is that the skills really are becoming more complex. They're like being enabled to do a whole lot of new, really cool, complex things. But again, it's a chicken or an egg thing where it's like, do I want to put in this time and effort to building out this really complex skill when at the end of the day, I have all this trouble to get people to, I think that might be the marketer's dilemma. And so if you can appease that sense, you have a lot of the technical things like we've kind of talked about for the first 4 that are, a lot of the minutia that's getting solved. Now you're starting to see like, okay, it's worth it on the technical side because it's feasible to build these cool, complex things. And then now you're seeing, I think on the marketing side, this is actually, it's conducive to being able to be shared and accessed in a whole lot of different ways.
Yeah. And this is the first time you could do some things. And there were companies that were out there that were trying to say, if I start from this link on my, Facebook page, then does that equate into somebody actually enabling and then invoking the skill? And there's just, there was some guesswork in there. And for the first time ever, now we can know exactly that it went from this location or this, this ad, and you actually invoked the skill, and you can start keeping track of those things. So that's just a whole world of possibilities. Once again, from a developer perspective, that's an interesting to me.
Yeah.
But then from a marketing perspective, that is just a missing piece that has just been put in that puzzle.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that we closed with this one because it really is the type of thing where I think it's a very landmark moment. And I know Google Actions, Google Action links exist too. So it's important to recognize that. I don't know what the Bixby ecosystem's like in regards to this, but I think that this has been something that's been a really a desperately needed aspect to this, because I think that we as voice enthusiasts, we're all adamant that there's a whole lot of potential here, but I think this can help to kind of cross the gap into people that are interested in these devices as a whole. But I don't know, like the data is pretty indicative that the third party ecosystem isn't really being tapped into in the way that I think a lot of us feel it could be. And it's these types of things that I think are going to be what propels it into more mainstream usage.
Yeah, and your skill doesn't have to make money. It just has to provide value in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases that might be monetary, that, especially if you're an individual dev, an indie or a small business that's creating these voice experiences. For monetization, that's important, but also providing value. And how are you going to prove that value has happened? And so that might be number of people that are looking at your content. It might be a better user experience, but without knowing the numbers of people that are using it or have actually invoked it, based on some other criteria, like specifically an ad campaign, then it's hard to prove that.
Yeah, and I think
worth.
that I think what's cool about this too is that this I could just see, in conjunction with a lot of the no code movement that's happening, where you have platforms like VoiceFlow that are super approachable. Myself, without a developing background, I'm able to go in there and I can build a skill on my own. And so you have that, and like the piece that you mentioned about small businesses, I think like that's a really good point, where what you now could start to open up is very similar to the web, where the web started to become democratized to where people were able, like any company, it got to the point where virtually anybody could build a website through a WordPress or a Squarespace, whatever that might be. And I think that like this speaks to, I feel like some serious momentum here, where you get buy-in from, it's not just these big companies that are the ones that are building the skills. It's small companies too that might just want to be doing it for, like my company here. I could see us building a skill where it's, all about just like the news of the week. Like, here's what are our specials for the week kind of thing. A restaurant could do that too, any kind of store could do that. And you could put that, that quick link, you could make it something where it's, real frequently shared on your social channels. You might want to do the custom one to where it's a certain aspect within it. If it's a few faceted type thing, you could put it in your email signature. I'm just thinking like, this is the kind of thing now where I feel like a lot of people, and I feel like in the voice industry, we've been talking a lot about how like now is the time, and we think that this is something that you want to get on the 8 ball here. And I feel like now that you're seeing kind of the combination of these two things, the ease of use in building the thing, and then also now the accessibility to get in and out of the skill and enable it and being able to access it. I think that's a really potent combination that could really start to pick up some momentum here. Because to your point, it's not all about just like revenue generating skills. It's also in the same vein of like why you would have a website, is that you want to have something that people, when they search you on their Alexa device or Google or Samsung, that something appears and that you can be the one that's populating that. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of good things. Definitely now as a developer, I want to jump in and get to the details and figure out what the current limitations are and why that is and stuff. But there's a lot that has been given to us just this week that's going to generate lots of new ideas and things that couldn't be done before, just based off of this current release of features.
Could not agree with you more. Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time here, breaking down your top 5, most exciting announcements coming from the Alexa Live 2020 event. This has been great catching up with you. Thanks for everybody who tuned in here to the end, and we will chat with you next time. Cheers.
That's good. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Future Ear Radio. For more content like this, just head over to futureear.co, where you can read all the articles that I've been writing these past few years on the worlds of voice technology and hearables and how the two are beginning to intersect. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll chat with you next time.